Welcome, everybody, to Sally Speaks Mindset podcast, where I get the most amazing opportunity to speak with leaders in their industry, female leaders in their industries that are just knocking the socks off of their business. And today is no different. I get to work with Patricia Dent today. She is my guest, and she has a business, as you can see behind her, Ask for Directions for Business Training. And we've had a number of conversations, and she has been able to really impact not only me, but so many other people throughout her career. She provides growing entrepreneurs with just-in-time coaching, practical training delivered by expert entrepreneurs, and a supportive community. She has these three pillars: support not only success from startup, but through growth. She helps people to become profitable sooner. Like, who doesn't want that? No. And avoid costly mistakes that delay success. Because I know, as being an entrepreneur too, there's a lot of elements out there that can be thrown at you thinking that's the next greatest and best thing that you should be investing in for your business.
Right.
But Patricia actually brings in the stability for us to help us understand where we need to spend our time and our money and our resources to be able to grow our business. So she has entrepreneurs that also join her Access membership after they've gone through some of her original courses that are helping them to build their business so that they can stay informed. But the most important part I loved about that is that you have a community of like-minded people supporting each other. And so she also has a podcast. Make sure you check it out. It's called Women Positive. Love that name. On Spotify, Apple, and it celebrates women who have overcome significant challenges. So Patricia is very well educated. She's got 30 years of corporate experience in organizations from startups to large institutions. She's a past president of the Barrie Chamber of Commerce in Ontario and a board member of several nonprofits. She has an honors BA in Sociology, a marketing certification, and certifications in CRM, coaching, and events. So I know her personality. I know she's going to be really straight with you, but she's also going to be really understanding of where you are today in this journey. And I think that's a big part of our conversation today. So make sure you subscribe. Make sure you like and put any comments down below so that we can get back to you to make sure that we're answering any questions that you might have after this podcast. So today we're going to call this one Enough with the Changes. Now let's embrace the changes in business. So tell me why you want to talk a little bit about change today.
Well, first of all, I just want to thank you for this opportunity to chat, because it's important, I think, that people hear diverse opinions, and you're good at that. So I really appreciate it. There you go.
Absolutely.
So why do I want to talk about change? As an entrepreneur and an entrepreneurial trainer, you can imagine that I talk to a number of people, and I really do. Yes. One of the things that I spend a great deal of time doing is doing research and watching trends and so on. And this is such a period of change that I have actually a bit of a passion for, because I like to understand what the mechanics of change are and what's going on in our world. Because if we're not curious about what's going on outside of us, we could be sidelined. We could be surprised by some of the conditions that are really unique, I think. I don't know that we've come across a whole series of these kinds of unique changes. So that's why I'm really interested. And there's another part of that too. One of the things I don't do, you'll hear a lot of people when they design their programs, they sever relationships with people. Oh, you've gone through the program? Great, that's it, you're done.
Yeah.
But I know from experience, and I've been doing this now for 13 years in terms of coaching and training people, that it's not a one and done situation. It really isn't. Because you're going to develop new experiences, you're going to run into new situations, and how we adapt to that is huge. So I make it a point to research current events and trends, and I also make it a point to include the folks who've actually graduated from my programs, because they really sometimes just need a little, quick touch. What do you think about this? Or I ran across this. Have you ever run across it? And so that's why I like change, because I know we're going to be up against it. Um, so one of the things that my people also do is they're developing new approaches, because we have to be a little innovative in this kind of environment, don't you think? Right?
Absolutely.
Those of us who've been around for a while know that this is a longer process, and it isn't one or done. You made a comment about, just before we started, about having started during a recession,
Yes.
and we've been there. And so we're not in a recession now. Let's not go there.
Yeah.
We're in economic uncertainty, but we're not in a recession.
Yeah.
But when you are in those economic difficulties, you develop far more quickly, I think, your skills and your knowledge, so that you know that what you're doing now may not be what you're going to do in 6 months or a year. And being mindful of the changes are good. So trial and error and change are my big things.
Yeah. And I think it's the art of the pivot.
Yeah. I know a number of us are really tired of that P word. It's almost like the bad word of entrepreneurship right now. But it's true. You don't know everything when you start, and you go in with assumptions.
Yes.
I don't know if you love the idea of the amygdala, but I start with entrepreneurial mindset when I'm training, because it's one of the big things. And when your amygdala, which is trained when you were small, from the time you were small, before you had any ability really to understand where this information was coming from, it's that filter that is in your head that sort of prevents other things from happening, maybe out of fear, or because you just think, well, that isn't logical. So we really, we've had a whole different shift in the past. And I think our amygdalas are a little tired from trying to defend us against some of the things that we've been through.
But I think it's also a sign of the times where we're moving at such a fast pace today. I look back on my career, and there was a lot of stability over a period of time with small changes from year to year. But with the advent of social media and news everywhere, we can source anything within a second's notice. And so I think because of that, we get drawn into the change maybe impacting us more so than we need it to in our business.
Maybe.
How do we get back to that stability, but also how do we adapt to the changes that we feel are right for us, not because they're right for others out in the marketplace?
That's a really good point. One of the ways I describe the current environment, and it's not going away immediately. I think we're in for this through 2023 anyway. I'm crossing my fingers, because that's a really good technique for an entrepreneur. Kidding. But I'm crossing my fingers that this, I've made the image, and I actually took it from one of the stock photo places to use, of a boat. If you think about being on a placid lake where you can anticipate it's going to be peaceful, the sun is shining, it's lovely. Then this crazy person comes screaming across the lake in a boat and sets up this wake. And what we're in right now is the wake. Normally, they quieten down. I think it's going to be a little bit of time. So I think you're right. If it were placid, we'd be able to anticipate it. There are a couple of things, and I think towards the end, and I'll talk about some of the specific responses that people are starting to make to kind of, find some stability and some even ground so they can make those good decisions. But we've had not just a global pandemic. That gave us a break in the order of things. So what we anticipated even 4 years ago, that is not happening now. There is no straight path to, well, if you do all of these things, it will be fine, right? We're just, I always think of is it Family Circus, the cartoon, where they get one of the kids to go and get this and bring it in, right? And that child will go all around the house and outside. I think that's where we are. We've had interruptions to expected patterns of sales and marketing. There are some good things. I mean, there's some positive things. Why don't we think about some positive things? Local businesses, and I'm in the Barrie area, so we have a lot of local entrepreneurs here, and they've had to adapt to being closed for a period of time. And some of them have taken up where they left off. For example, hairdressers are doing okay now because who doesn't not? Who wants to get their hair cut? Who doesn't want to have roots show? You know, I mean, there's some compelling reasons. But there are entrepreneurs who discovered an online revenue stream because they had to go online.
Yes.
They needed to adapt their marketing approaches. And that doesn't always work smoothly, but it's an opportunity. And new business lines were created. Think about sanitizer. My goodness, of course, that was a lot of breweries and alcoholic organizations who weren't necessarily, although I don't know why, selling their products, and they developed sanitizers and so on. And people were able to, on a positive note, they were able to save much more money at the beginning of the pandemic because they weren't going out places where they couldn't.
Yeah.
They were often working from home, and that's a little bit of a rough return to.
That was a tough one.
Yeah, that could be a tough one, but they saved money. And so I follow a number of people. One of them is the Development Bank of Canada. And my favorite economic genius is Pierre Cleroux. He is the senior economist there. I love him because he speaks in like people. Yeah, in people, not in, that huge financial thing. And one of the things he said last November was that, and this has been sort of building, this period of change and oddness has been building since the interest rate started hiking last March, in March 2022. But in November, he said about half of the savings were maintained from COVID, from the beginning of COVID. And so what that means is that people are spending, but they're spending very carefully. That's my take on it. Is that your experience as well?
Yeah, I think people are really putting a lot of weight on, is this something that I can invest in? Is this something that's in my budget? Because there is a lot of uncertainty as well, but they also became in the habit of saying, like you said, when you're working from home, you don't have to travel for your vehicle. You don't have to eating out for lunch or going out with friends after work or any of your clothing expenses even. I used to spend a lot of money on my clothing and shoes when I was working in the corporate world, but working from home, you need to be dressed from the waist up in something nice.
You could be wearing your jammies. We could be sitting here in our jammies. Now we aren't, but exactly. I can prove it if you want. But
I think that's made people a little bit more aware of their spending habits in the past and said, well, if we could do that during then, what could we do now? And so therefore it allows them to think a little bit differently about how they are managing their finances. Well,
particularly in light of the rising interest rates, because although it looks like it's just hovering and hopefully they may be increasing in July. I haven't heard the news today, so I don't know if that's happened, but they might be doing one other quick adjustment so they can bring the rate of inflation down. Because I think on the negative side, there was a lot of pressure. Lots of businesses didn't survive. And because I have the privilege of dealing with startup as well as growing business, I know the reality of it, that there were people who had to abandon dreams for the moment. In fact, what I'm telling people now is, hey, don't just quit your job. You may be fed up with it. I'm a corporate survivor. Don't quit your job. Start something on the side so you can get the hang of it. You can do that because there are things that have to be put in place. But that was probably, a side effect of the, that horrible time when we weren't sure whether people were going to survive, like restaurants.
Yeah.
Something that was purely local that was suffering from closures, for example, couldn't necessarily continue. Getting supplies like computer chips. I have a client who's a graduate of my program. He's in the IT business locally, and getting computers at a decent price, getting laptops is crazy for him. He was just saying this the other day. I'm thinking, wow, it's still going on in some ways. Getting some supplies is still an issue. Staffing. I don't know how many of your viewers are dealing with, the impact of a very emotional period of time, developing different values, different hopes and aspirations. People don't always want to be doing what they've always done. They're not resigned to that. And they're also potentially needing a raise because of the rising prices. So staffing is one of the things that has really, I hear it from all levels of business. I have the privilege as well of being part of a group of CEOs who meet periodically. And one of the things that always shocks me, and we don't always want to say things out loud,
Yes.
but one of the things that shocked me was, wow, losing really key staff members despite trying to create a great environment for staffing for their employees, because they look at their costs and they may have some savings that might be good, but they want to be able to have a little more of a buffer in their expenses. So we're all waiting for the price of things to go down for sure.
Yeah.
So in fact, it's interesting. There were some people who just said, I'm done. I've been in business for a while. I'm done. I really believe that people should exit their businesses with, if I could get a runway of 5 years, I'd be grateful for some businesses, 2 at least. Yeah. But I've got one of my classes is actually exiting your business because there are cyclical behavior. But also there were 3 people who we did a kind of a pilot mastermind during the pandemic of what to do for leaving. And everybody had a different approach. But those who were fed up tended to want to do something that was more abrupt.
Oh, okay.
One of them has ended up shifting their business to something else because it was a passion project and they are in a place where they can do it. And one is taking on a partner who will be their person taking over time, but they're doing it very slowly, which I'm very thrilled about, to be honest. And it's a good relationship, right?
Yeah.
So we had some initial stuff. It is right. So people ask me sometimes, what's happening right now? Do you have any observations of the economy right now? Where do you think it's going to go with all the people you're talking to?
Well, with all the people that I'm associated with, and I've come from the finance industry.
Yes,
I know that there's always ebbs and cycles, right? I know that there's always a brighter side when there's a downside. And it's a matter of being able to be objective as opposed to emotional.
Right.
In any change that's happening within our financial futures or the economy. And so for me, I look at it a little differently than a lot of other people because I come from that background. But I do notice that there's a lot of business people out there, and it almost seems to me like they're clinging on, they're desperate to find that golden nugget that's going to propel them forward to get that income coming in the way they want it to. Right. But yet they're not giving themselves time to develop into their business. So a lot of people that happen to come my way are within that first 2 to 3 years in their business. And, I know from stats that if you can make it to your 3rd year is when you're probably going to start to actually turn a profit of some sort, but it's going to take that time to get there. But I also know there's a lot of people out there, special entrepreneurs, that are looking for that significant piece that's going to make a difference. And there's so many people saying, okay, I can help you with this, and this is going to make you that $10,000 or $100,000 or whatever. So there's lots of confusion out there is what I'm finding. And people are holding on to their pocketbooks until they think that they found that golden nugget and possibly go down that path. But a lot of them are giving up before they even get, enough clients in or enough experience into their business before they can move forward.
I agree with you. I think I was part of the Toronto Stock Exchange for about 7 years, ran the broadcasting conference center there. And while I wasn't doing all of the financial things, of course, I was in charge of the media, all of the and training for the public to try and figure out how to invest. So I'm really familiar with this. And so we weren't even allowed to say the R word, recession. But people, I've run across these people who think that we're already in a recession and they're being ultra careful. I think it's loosening right now. There, as you said earlier, we've been through so many changes, and there is, it's up and down and up and down. And so there are lots of opinions out there, not always educated opinions.
Yes.
And you need to evaluate what you're doing for sure. And you need to have a long view, I think, when you're an entrepreneur. There are people who want to stay within their employment, even if they want to be entrepreneurs, but they're concerned because there are major companies like Rolls-Royce and Suncor and Microsoft and Meta, who are laying off employees, who have laid off employees. So it's not a stable situation yet. And it's, if you ask me, I would say start your business on the side, like I've said, and start growing that, because there are things that you do take time.
Yes.
I've also noted changes in the time of responsiveness. So if you're somebody who, and I don't get this because it's a bit of a problem for privacy, but my inbox is getting filled with people I don't know, people who are emailing me saying, hey, do you want to do this? And whatever it is to help your business. As you were saying, there's so many things we're being bombarded with. How do we know what the right thing is? And I can't blame people for being a little bit shy or taking extra time to be thoughtful, because it started, I think, in the fall, I think, of 2022, that there were people who were willing to look at free things. There were people who were willing to get ideas, but they weren't necessarily willing to connect and go forward with their own training. Now, that isn't always the case, but timing is definitely, I think people are being bombarded. I think that people are being asked for quick decisions, and they're just, that's not going to happen. Not in this day and age. And the interesting thing that I've also found from being both dealing with startups and growing businesses as well as CEOs is that it's everywhere. So entrepreneurs are not the only ones. And if you look at some of the thought leaders, I do check in a lot with some thought leaders. There's some of my favorites. While there are some sectors that are not affected, such as those sectors that can offer a low to middle price for things like hairdressing. We're not going to let our hair go. It's not like we're, at home like at the beginning of the pandemic, right? Personal services, especially wellness, mental wellness, physical wellness. That seems to be, those are busy people. I've got a couple of clients who are in those fields. And then there are the people who are in B2B, business to business, who are supporting those firms. Those firms have money. But Neil Patel he said recently, just because a big business has money doesn't mean they're going to spend it. Right. So that carefulness, that consideration, and that step back is happening, big business as well as little businesses. So then people are looking for, I think they're looking for alternatives. I'll give you an example. You may go to the hairdresser and get your hair cut. You may go and get a color, but you may not do the pull through fabulous streaks that are happening, right? Because that's a bit more of a thing. Or renovations. Now, there's a lot of work in the renovations business right now. Lawn care, renovations, all of those things. Think about, with the craziness of the housing market, are you going to just up and sell your house and move? Are you going to try and get to the higher level of house that you really have been wanting for so long, but you're making do with the 2 bedrooms or the 3 bedrooms, right? No, you're not going to. I knew somebody whose mortgage went from $2,700 a month to $4,400 a month because of the interest rates.
Isn't that crazy?
That is crazy. So you're not going to do that. But what you might do is say, okay, I think we could actually finish the basement now. And then I can accommodate a teenager in my life who has some privacy and can do what they want in the basement, right? But you may not just decide to get a bigger house, because that's, with the mortgage rates, where there are, it's crazy. Now, think about pent-up demand, though. We were restricted during the pandemic. We couldn't travel. We couldn't do anything, right, for a while. So the travel story is just amazing, right? And I keep watching it because we love to travel, and we often, if we've tried to travel twice a year, that isn't always possible. And on one hand, we went on a trip, and we watch the alternatives for travel. We're careful, but we went on a trip to Jamaica in April, and it was lovely.
Nice.
Then we immediately priced a return trip to the same location, the same resort, same time of year, but a year later, the price went up 35%. And that was just to almost right after we came back. It was like, let's look at what it is now. Uh-oh, really?
Mhm. Yeah.
So I think the pent-up demand is probably going to wind down a little bit.
Mhm.
And I have noticed that if you look at WestJet and Air Canada, I've noticed that they're offering short-term discounts now, which they
Are
didn't
they?
do before. Yeah, if
Notice
you
that.
fly this month, and then we'll give you this and this, whatever
Okay.
off. So maybe it's about the end. I hope the
Hopefully.
housing, I hope so too. And I
Things
hope the
will.
housing, well, yeah, and we also need places to live, and we need to be able to
Mhm.
grow our families and stuff. So
Yeah.
there's for sure some of that stuff. What else am I finding? Do you have any other questions right now? I'm thinking about some of these.
So
There's some trends I am finding.
what would be your suggestion to the entrepreneurs, that have already stepped into it and they're in their first 3 to 5 years? And, it's an up and down cycle typically when
Right.
they're starting at that type, right? So in this type of economy, what would your suggestions be as far as how to manage through your business?
That's a good question. Because here's the thing. We can't necessarily predict with certainty how it's going to go. The smooth path that you talked about, I don't think we're there now. No, I don't think we're there. So one of the things you can look at, somebody contacted me because I love strategy. That's my thing.
Mhm.
So one of the entrepreneurs in my circle, I do some mentoring for the economic development people in the city here.
Mhm.
And so one of my old kind of mentees got in touch. She said, well, I don't know what to do because all of a sudden nobody's responding. I've got sessions that were booked, and she's got a bit of a high-end product. It's in jewelry and it's beautiful. And you can go there and you can make your own, and they do it as, a mother-daughter or a family thing. And it's always been very popular. And all of a sudden, where are they all? So what does she do? So I can tell you some of the thoughts that we had from the strategy meeting that we did. And that is, one of the biggest things in my view is collaboration. I don't believe we collaborate enough. And one of the things I'm always trying to foster within my cohorts is, listen, these people are on your side, and maybe you can even work together. Have you got complementary products or services? Have you got other entrepreneurs? And you have to have a bit of trust here, because I'm not a fan of partnerships per se. I don't think people enter into an agreement that's thorough enough if they're going to be partners. And unfortunately, the legislation in Canada is brutal when it comes to dissolving a partnership. Even if you only talk about it, everything gets divided 50-50, according to the lawyers I spoke to previously. And so that's not good. But you can collaborate. What if you are to do things like affiliate work? And that means that, and this is what I did with my last launch. So I asked somebody to mail for me to get people on my list for the launch, and then see if I can expand my influence there. So if they'll do that, and of course you have to, if it's an affiliate, you can offer them up to, I'd say 20% for products and 40% for online. That's the sort of standard at the moment. So it is a bite out of what you're earning, but you may not have reached those people before, right? So there's a trade-off. I've also done referrals. I love that people will refer me. And when I had my in-person class, because I was one of those ones who in March of 2020, I got a call. I have to, and this is from a graduate because she had a facility. I have to close down, the government says. Oh, well, that's not permanent, right? Yeah, no, but we don't know. So, okay. So my in-person classes went online through Zoom, and then I developed my online course. So I've done this for a long time, but what I love about it is that I would take the products and services for my graduates, and I would say to them, I'm going to pay you X amount of dollars. Can you offer a referral gift? And I had a kind of a list where people would go, oh, I want pet food, or, oh, I want to get my hair done, or, oh, here's something interesting. So they would give them the product. So that meant they had a little more exposure for product, and I would pay them for giving the product.
Yeah.
And often they would use it as a marketing opportunity and add a little extra or give them a different experience. So I would do referrals, I would do affiliates if I could.
Yeah.
I think you have to also look at who are your clients and what do they need. So I'm big on research. I really am. I've just got a survey out there right now, and I'm asking people, you know, how is their experience? What sector are they in? How is their experience? Are they finding that it's business as usual? Or are they finding that there's been a slowdown, and about how much of a slowdown, right? And so I'm just giving them another couple of days, and then I'm going to check that out. What it should tell me, I've also offered, I haven't got it with me, but I've offered a gift certificate to put their names in a draw for a gift certificate. It helps if I put that out there. Maybe somebody wants to join my list. And so I'll do the draw and we'll send out a gift certificate in thanks. And then I've got really valuable information about where people's heads are at.
Okay.
Because it's got to be real.
So did you ask questions on that then?
I did ask questions on, you know, is everything working for you? Are you affected by this? And there will be somebody who says, no, not at all. They might be in renovations or wellness or whatever. I know one of my graduates got in touch with me a little while ago. She's moved north in Ontario. She's starting her own chiropractic clinic, which is so cool because she's always been a chiropractor participating. So there are organizations that are working for sure. And then the opposite, is your business suffering from it? What do you think's going on? And what I want to do is put together a video, which I'm going to give you a link for, so that people can do this stuff, do stuff that's a little different, find out what your clients want. Can you switch gears? I generally really believe in group cohorts, and I start them at certain times of the year, but I'm also doing one-to-one strategy calls, as I mentioned, because that is something that people absolutely can use and apply right then.
Correct.
I've got a membership, so I'm working at different things to see what people are more willing to spend. And for example, in a membership, there isn't that constant exposure to new classes. I have 15 instructors and they teach different things in the course, but maybe that's not what somebody thinks they need. So I'm looking for different ways of satisfying their needs at a price that they are really looking to pay. So I think those are the major things, because we are in a very competitive environment. There's a lot of stuff coming back at people. What if somebody you've worked with before can give you a recommendation? What if they can, introduce you to somebody? I think it's a good place to get back to personal.
Exactly. Personal connections.
I think personal connections are really important. But on the other hand, for those of us who've done more local work in the past, what else do we do? There are a couple of joint venture mixers, and I believe you've been involved in a couple of those too. That's a way. When I did a summit in the fall, I had people from Canada, yes, where I live, but also from the US, from New Zealand, from South Africa, from Sweden.
Yeah.
And it's just opening up more opportunities.
Yeah.
So to me, did you?
Yeah. This year, my global influence has been huge. But I also made a committed decision at the beginning of the year that I was going to be global. And all of a sudden, all these people showed up. And so,
well, yeah, that's a good idea.
And what I found though, is what you've been talking about is the common challenges, struggles, and opportunities are the same globally. It's not just to your own neighborhood or your country or your city. It's the same thing. Everybody's going through the same motions in their businesses that we are, regardless of what their country's economy is like. And so for me, that was a big eye opener as well, because it just allowed me to really see that as humans, And as business owners, we're experiencing the same types of challenges. And the
Right.
same opportunities are there for us globally as well. And for me, that sort of opened up my perspective to say, wow, this is a small world
Right.
because everybody has the same types of things happening in their life right now.
They
So,
truly do. They
yeah,
truly
it
do.
was a big eye opener for me.
When you can talk to somebody from Johannesburg
Mhm.
and they have their own, they have a Facebook, they like to use Facebook groups. I
Yeah.
have one as well. It's pretty quiet right now, but it's so interesting to get more perspectives. You can get more ideas from other people too.
Mhm. Mhm.
I also follow a number of people because there are some serious leaders that I think are really cool.
Yes.
I'm a member of Jeff Walker's product launch formula or launch club. It's a
Mhm.
mastermind for
Yeah.
launch club. I believe as an entrepreneurial trainer, I need to get trained.
Yes.
I just always have felt that way. If you, I've watched some people who kind of maintain their ideas from 5 years ago,
Mhm.
10 years ago, and it's not, I don't think it's relevant. No, it's not the same. So I watch people like Amy Porterfield has been doing some
Yeah.
interesting stuff. And she's very open through her podcast
Mhm.
and also what she's doing. She wrote a book called Side Hustle, or no, 2 weeks notice. That was it.
Okay. Yeah.
Just like the movie. And what she did was offer a mini course with the sale of a book, which is kind of cool. You know,
Mhm.
it's one of those things that you wouldn't necessarily offer. But here's the thing, if you get a number of people buying this, you still have good revenue coming in.
Mhm. Mhm.
And many of the companies that we deal with, Neil Patel has come out with 7 things you should do. Okay, great. He's a big guy, right? And he talks about things like omni-channel marketing.
Yes.
But we don't often have several companies under our belts at the beginning, at least, or for a while. But he also talks about the importance of branding. And one of the things that I think you've done, which I've done as well, is get to know people in a global stage.
Mhm. Mhm.
Visibility, gone are the days. I mean, I have a client who all they want to do is just quietly wait for people to come. They're not coming.
No.
They're not going to do that. So getting visible, speaking, getting on podcasts, doing things like I thought this was a wonderful opportunity that you're offering. And so would I say no? No, because, well, I like you. First of all, I think you have to like that person, but it's also a good thing to let people know what you're thinking and doing,
Yes.
you know? And this local to virtual, I think has been a big move because it allows us to go global.
Yeah.
But yet, as I said, I think a personal approach is just huge because if you're a real person with people, if you are supportive, I think those are cool. And some of the people who are sending me massive emails, I particularly like the one that is sent the next day that said, well, you didn't answer me. It's like, I don't even know you, right? I wonder about privacy and what happened, for privacy lately. Anyway, so I think those are really key things. If you are real, if you are respectful, but you are supportive, I have to believe that that's going to stay with people. Maybe I'm foolish. I don't know. We'll see.
I mean, I've found the same thing is the building the relationship is still the most critical piece.
It
with
really
anybody
is.
that I've done work with the people that I invite onto my podcast. It's important for me to have that one-on-one connection and really understand them and what their views are so that I can know how I can best serve them. And so whether it's becoming a guest on the podcast like today, or whether it's doing a LinkedIn Live or something like that, where we have something that we can commonly talk about or share, those are the pieces that are important. And that's how you build that rapport and that ongoing, because we all get spammed by people in our DMs and everything else, like, oh, you need to be doing this with me. Well, no, I don't.
Maybe. I don't know.
Why would I?
But there's got to be a reason, right?
Yeah, you think but it's just, I get that people just throwing things out and hoping someone's going to show up. But at the same time, for me, it's about building that relationship. It's about building that trust and that rapport with somebody so that they understand not only that I care about them, but also that I get to actually really hear them. Because today we don't really get heard.
We
Very
don't. No, it's very noisy out there, right? How do you compete when it's noisy out there? I do things that on a regular basis, and I, don't want to spam people with a bazillion things. And
Mhm.
this may be a bit controversial, but I'm going to say handpick your clients.
Yes, I
Be-
agree.
because I did make, we've all make mistakes, and I freely admit them. I hope people can learn from my mistakes and maybe avoid them. But at the beginning, I thought, I want to help everybody in the whole world. I do. And so I would have some intuition about maybe they're not really my people. And then immediately squash it and say, don't be judgmental,
Mm.
because that's, you should be able to help everybody. I don't feel that way anymore.
Mhm.
And it's not that I'm rude or I reject them outright, but if somebody isn't the kind of person you can relate to,
Yes.
you can feel it in your gut. And
Mhm.
when I heard a major CEO in my local area talk about intuition in one of our sessions, I thought, thank
Wow.
heavens, that's amazing, right? Yeah, so I think those are the things. Relationships are really important, and pick the people that you really want to work with.
Mhm.
Because when you're desperate for money, is it awful to go back and get a part-time job? I
Nope.
used to think, ooh, I don't think that anymore.
Mhm.
Make sure your family or yourself and your family are whole. And yes, it's busy when you're trying to maintain your business as well.
Mhm.
But you can do, you don't have to be in a little slot,
Yeah.
where if you can figure out a way that it works for you and
Mhm.
find clients in different places. And if it's tough financially, that's when you might think about just getting a job,
Mhm.
whether you have to hold your nose or not, but so that you've got cash flow, right?
Yeah, because once you get the cash flow, you attract more cash.
Well,
Your
you
business
do. A big,
typically will start to grow faster because you're not worried about the lack.
right.
And so once you have a little bit of cash flow and you're feeling like you're back on track, you will start attracting more. It's just part of how our energy works, in my opinion.
Absolutely. I totally agree with you, because the thing is, if you're totally focused on how negative and how awful it is, what do you
Mhm.
think is going to happen? And how do you think you're going to attract really great opportunities if you're,
Mhm.
it's if you're stuck in, and maybe in your amygdala, it could
Yes.
be.
Yeah,
'Cause
absolutely.
right?
Absolutely. Yeah, I
Well,
completely agree. So where can people find you? How can they
my
reach you?
email is ask for Patricia, please, because I won't tell you why, but I have an evil cousin who's, got the same name. So Patricia at askfordirectionstraining.com. And my website is askfordirectionstraining.com as well. But I will be giving you a link to
Perfect.
a page where the video that I'm going to do about, so what do we do now? And I go into a little more detail on some of the strategies that are working for the moment. Since I'm gathering that data, I'll be able to let you know. And if people want to sign up for that, it'll be free. It'll
Yeah,
just be a free
that's
webinar.
a wonderful gift, because I think there's so many of us that are just at that stage, like, okay, so I've been spinning my wheels, I've been doing these things, and am I
Yeah.
failing, or is it the system that's failing, or what do I need to do to just pivot a little bit, or to make a slight change or tweak? And so with you coming forward and saying, this is what's going on now, that's a
Right.
wonderful gift. So please take advantage of that gift.
Thank you.
We'll put that up when we post this. So make sure that you find the link, and if you can't, you know how to reach out to Patricia. And your website is?
https://askfordirectionstraining.com. And
Excellent.
actually, Ask for Directions is my tagline for the parent company. And I trademarked it. I can't believe nobody trademarked it. But anyway, there you go.
Nice. That's incredible. Who would
Actually,
have
I'm
thought?
sorry. How
I
about
thought,
that?
well, it takes a woman to put that up, ask for directions. Let's say that.
Yeah, we won't talk about the gender bias at all. Thank you
Well,
so much, Sally.
I
Thank
really
you.
appreciate your time today. I always enjoy the conversations that we have, because you have so much insight, and I know the work that you do for your clients is just invaluable, and it's evident by the success that you have and that they also create. So thank you so
I'm
much for
grateful.
joining us today. I really appreciate it.
Thanks, Sally. Appreciate you too.
Have a great day.
You too.